Greetings, everyone. My name is Vidhi Sharma, and I'm a graduate student in data science and business analytics. I would like to welcome you all to the 6th annual Charlotte Women in Data Science virtual conference hosted and sponsored by UNC Charlotte School of Data Science and Laws. The WITS Charlotte Conference initiative aims to inspire and educate data scientists across the region, regardless of gender, and to support women in the field. With the current state of the world mainly interacting online, we are grateful for your decision to attend our 2-day virtual event and show your support for our various speakers. I would like to extend a special thanks to all of our attendees for showing up and showing your support. We do have a Q&A session in there. Please drop in your questions in the chat box. I'm happy to introduce our speaker for the hour, Dinah Shaw, Senior Product Manager at SAS. I welcome you, Dinah.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you, everybody. My name is Diana Shaw, and I have been asked to come and talk in regards to data science and, quite honestly, women in a role of data science. And so with that, I'd like to kind of have this be as interactive as possible, even though we are virtual. And so I'd really like in today's presentation for you to really think about what have you perceived as roles for women. And you'll hear from me in terms of the fact that I don't know that I always follow the path, and I'm really hoping that you too decide that you don't necessarily have to follow the path that everybody says. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I tend to multitask. It's actually a really bad habit of mine. So what I've done is I've included in a PDF form. I apologize, it's really, really big in scale, but if you have a chance, go ahead and download that, because as you're listening to me today, would love for you to peruse, especially if you're going to multitask. I know I do. Again, it's a really bad thing. But there are some really useful links in here. So what I've included is links in terms of careers that we have here at SAS, particularly for students that are graduating from either undergraduate or postgraduate. So really great opportunities there. Also, I'm really blessed to work at SAS. We do a lot of great things when it comes to data for good initiatives. And so I wanted to share with you just some of the different things that we have that we work on for our data for good, the Gather IQ app. And quite frankly, if you're getting bored and you kind of want to speed this along, you could help us out. We're actually trying to train a computer vision model to help identify areas within the rainforest that are unfortunately being affected by human growth. So again, if you want to go ahead and multitask, please use those links. So I'm going to pause here and attempt to see if I can find a way to check the chat buttons every once in a while. But hopefully what you see in front of you is a list of different roles. And I'm going to pause there because I would love to hear from you what you think of those roles. What do they have in common? So there's process engineering roles. There's technical sales in the steel industry. Supporting HVAC, pneumatic controllers, and building automation controllers, kind of in a managerial type role, sales for energy efficiency, data scientist, AI manager, and product manager. Let's see, 3 more. I think I see the chats. Perfect. STEM, yes, and all data related, yes. Funny, they're all the roles that I did. So data scientist is definitely one of them. I'm now a product manager, but quite honestly, if you looked at my LinkedIn, that is kind of the scenario. And you're absolutely right. Everything that I've done in my life is STEM related. I think it's the best path to go down, and I'm hoping to get you interested in that. But yes, definitely STEM, definitely data related. So let me tell you a little bit about myself, because it will kind of explain all of those different roles that I've shown that are not exactly the most traditional female roles. So I grew up in Sudbury, Ontario, Canada. It is best known as being called the Big Nickel because we have a big nickel, because we're a steel or a mining town that mines nickel and copper. We have a beautiful science center on one of the lakes. There's about 23 lakes in the city itself. And in the wintertime, it can be really fun. So lots of snowmobiling, lots of fun activities. But I'll be honest with you, there are some winters where that's what the front of your house looks like. And here in North Carolina, fortunately, we don't get that much snow. And it's ironic, I've never had a snow day a day in my life, even though I've had a house that looked like that. So I decided kind of after I graduated from my engineering degree that I didn't want to stay there any longer. So I went as far south as you can go in Canada, where the Great Lakes are technically north of you. So you'll have to look that one up because typically the Great Lakes are south. So Hamilton is a big city relative to where I grew up. It's right down the street from Toronto, Ontario, and it's right around the bend from Niagara Falls. So great city. I will tell you, I moved from a mining town to a steel town. And so quite honestly, this is where I worked for about 6 years. It was a steel plant that has now been bought out by US Steel and unfortunately been shut down. But I worked in those big, ugly brown areas, the big iron making area. And so honestly, one with the red shirt, that's me. That's when I was first out of school as a process engineer. And I'll be honest with you, in this role, I was the first female to be hired into iron making. So there were women that were working as receptionists, but I was the first female to be hired in a technical capacity, and I was a process engineer. Not to say I was the only one though. So there was a female process engineer in another kind of upstream plant of what I did. But I want to kind of highlight that these are non-traditional roles. We've been improving this throughout time, and quite honestly, it was challenging. So I didn't like just doing daily reports. I'll talk more about that here in a second. And so I decided to be a foreman on the furnace. And this is kind of sad, but the term that they gave it was blast furnace blower. So I was the first female blower at the plant, which is probably not the best word for a female. And it was very, very dirty and things like that. So I decided I really wanted to kind of expand my career. And what was neat is back in 1998, kind of that 2000 time range, I was really responsible for authoring a number of standard operating procedures, kind of identifying ways to make the product better, cheaper, faster, and within capacity. But it was very labor intensive, very, very manual. I used data and Excel. So no offense against Excel. However, the data that I was dealing with was, we had about 900 sensors around the furnace that were generating data on a second or split second basis, 24/7, 365. And my responsibility as a process engineer was to generate reports on a daily basis in regards to the productivity. How well were we doing? Was the product within spec? And I'll be honest with you, I really struggled using Excel because this is kind of like pre-IoT data. And so anyways, what I did was I kind of aggregated to 5 minutes. If you're familiar with macros, so Excel offers the ability to do macros, that's called VBA programming. I authored a 900-page macro to generate these reports. You can't do that anymore. Now that we're moving from 900 sensors to, at one point we were talking billions of sensors, now we're talking trillions of sensors. And what's really interesting with this data, if you haven't had a chance to deal with IoT data, is there's a very low what I'll call signal to noise ratio, meaning that you get a lot of ones or a lot of zeros, but you don't get a lot of change in between the two. And the whole kind of use of IoT data is to help identify fluctuations, identify changes, and then be able to kind of pattern match to then use that as a predictor for failures that are about to come. And you really need to have the right tools in place to really be able to exploit and use this data. It's not something that you can just go ahead and put in a Tableau dashboard or a visual analytics dashboard or Excel. It's just too voluminous. And quite honestly, you're really going to need AI and machine learning to solve that. So that's where I was at. And then I had a massive reset on life. I literally got divorced. I said to myself, why am I living in a country that still has all this snow? So I started looking for opportunities. And quite honestly, an opportunity in Raleigh, North Carolina presented itself to go and do energy efficiency solutions. I then met an incredible guy who unfortunately had lost his wife to cancer and these two great stepkids. Sorry, I always get upset when I think of that. Anyhow, so with them doing energy efficiency, and I thought, you know what? This is interesting, but not as much fun as it could be because I really love data. So I decided to go and pursue the Masters of Analytics over at NC State in their Institute of Advanced Analytics. That brought me to SAS. I then became a US citizen. I'm excited on that one. And then this is where the story really changes. I, as a data scientist at SAS, had an opportunity to manage a team of data scientists. And this was so awesome and so exciting for me. If you look at this picture, I'm going to tell you that is a perfect example of what a data science team needs to look like. Yes, absolutely, we need more women in data science. Absolutely. We really need to make sure that we are not generating AI applications where it's only one gender, or it's only one ethnicity, or it's only created with one perspective or thought in life. The fact that you can bring a team together that has all different age ranges, all different backgrounds, all different nationalities is actually the most awarding way of being able to generate AI applications. And so that was a super fun team. I then made the error of complaining about one of the products here at SAS and really feeling it needed to be augmented. So they said, if you're going to complain about it, why don't you fix it? So they gave me the opportunity to be the product manager for an application that we use for operationalizing models. And I'm loving the role. Unfortunately, I'm not leading a team of data scientists anymore, and I really miss them. And all of this happened right when COVID struck. So here is that same family. You can see that my husband's gotten older and my kids have gotten way bigger, but we have really mastered the art of the COVID Zoom outfit. So you can see that my husband and I are often doing calls, and then we've got our sportswear underneath to go and hit the gym or go play tennis afterwards. But I thought you might enjoy that just to see what a data scientist really looks like. Okay, so let me talk a little bit more about data science, because it's really the art of being able to pull together data, then apply the right math or algorithm to it to solve a problem, and more importantly, to deploy the model into some type of a system that can then make use out of it. So today, I'm going to focus more on those orange segments, the actual analytics or the machine learning components as I talk through this. Now, given that you're here today, you probably are very aware of machine learning and deep learning. So you probably don't need to have me go through definitions, but I'm incorporating them just in case. More what I'd like to talk about kind of throughout the day is how these machine learning applications can derive benefit for organizations, how they can be fun to work with, and how they could benefit from having more females think about this. So back in the steel plant, we had a planned shutdown. That happens all the time. But unfortunately, when we brought it back, the furnace back online, somebody forgot to turn the water off or forgot to turn the water back on. And the furnace gets to about 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll repeat that. 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit inside the furnace. And so not having the water going around the outside to cool it down, you can imagine what happened, right? So we had a massive fire. Here's the problem. It can be really, really hard to identify these issues, and it's always easy to be the Monday morning quarterback and identify the issue. So in here, I'm going to pause and I'm going to ask you, can you find the anomaly? Because this is kind of what it's like dealing with IoT data and dealing with all of the different myriad of things that are going on. Could anybody here see the issue? I'll help you out. Instead of it being a 1, there's an exclamation mark in here. Is anyone with the chat? Oh, okay, question mark, middle left, center left, you're getting close, very close. It's right there. But I made this really simple, to be honest. There's not that many data points in here, but great job to Jesse and Catherine for, you guys look like you were finding it. Okay, so here's what IoT data looks like if you're just analyzing it and just using visualizations on it. So there's 9 turbofan engines. This is NASA data. And to me, I didn't see any issue. And really the plot colors didn't make any world of difference for me. It was one of the variables I was looking at relative to another. Now let's change that. Now we're going to look at that same data, but this time we're applying machine learning. Very specifically, we're using a support vector data description to identify anomalous behavior. And what you can see is that exact same data. So I'll do that again. That exact same data that you just saw here. Let me hit run on this. That same data, all I did to it was I applied machine learning to it. So these are just 2 of the variables out of the 24 that are available. And by looking at the full spectrum of data, so all 24 different features that were part of that data, and applying support vector data description, I was able to easily identify 3 of the 9 systems that all failed for very different reasons. But hopefully you can see how machine learning, and quite honestly, deep learning, can be incredible tools to help you find anomalous behavior to then help identify and hopefully prevent bad things from happening. So I thought I'd share, like, I don't want to get into details, but I have worked on some very fun and weird projects over my tenure here at SAS as a data scientist. Everything working with a company that actually does separation. They bring in the natural gas and they're really trying to take raw natural gas and sweeten it. So take out all the impurities of it. And quite honestly, machine learning, even that support vector data description, these were all solid ways for us to be able to help identify when the systems were performing poorly. My favorite, honestly, was I got to go to Zurich and work with a company that actually does maintenance on aircrafts. And so analyzing the data after the plane landed and look at the information, because what's really cool with planes is they have redundant systems. So actually that analysis was actually quite simple. All I had to do was look at the differential between the 2 different redundant systems to help identify issues. Fleets of trucks, again, looking at kind of doing this idea of a moving windows performance or principal component analysis over time to actually identify issues with the telemetrics data that comes off the trucks. We were able to identify trucks that had never had oil in them for about 365 days prior to a massive failure. So just taking that data and trying to teach people how to use it and leverage it was instrumental. Working with wind tower machines, the turbines there, the printers. Had an awesome opportunity to work with a wonderful woman out of Wilmington who's kind of driving a new startup called Indiomics and really looking to try and analyze water and help us kind of eat healthier and be healthier. And then quite honestly, Orlando Magic. I got to go down there and work with them, and the players, when they get hurt, they actually put sensors, chips on their shorts. And so it's kind of analyzing how they perform after they come back from an injury, just to make sure that they're not overstressing themselves. So some really fun, cool projects. Now, I'll be honest, those are not normal projects that people work on. Those were just ones that I got a chance to work on. More typically, we work with manufacturing to identify claims or retail to try and help them come up with the better BOGO offers, things like that. Financial services is obviously huge for us as well, and really trying to identify fraud or where companies are at risk. But that takes me to the next fun thing, computer vision. So I'd love to see a shout out for anybody that's had a chance to work on computer vision, because that is some fun times. You really need data, lots and lots of data for this. It's the whole idea of essentially being able to use math to help identify what's going on in images, right? Being able to identify critical points within the image, or be able to identify if that's the right person. I have to tell you, this is going to be a blossoming area and really fun to work with, but you need a lot of data, and you need a lot of trained data, meaning you need somebody to sit there and be like, yes, that's a picture of a dog, or yes, that's a picture of a cat. Now, every time you log in and you have to specify in a system, like where is the car in the picture, or where are the streetlights, and it's got like 9 different segments and you have to select them, you're actually training systems and working as an unpaid data scientist, by the way. But just thought I'd share that info. Trying to see if there's any messages. Then, okay, so let me talk about how you can use this, because this actually can be really helpful. So again, I apologize, I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to manufacturing, but this one gets me super excited. What you're seeing here is computer vision on the big sheets of drywall that are coming out. Now, when they're first produced, the drywall is still wet, still like a wet liquid between the sheets of paper. And you can't have any of those boards hit each other, because if they do, then you're in big trouble, because you end up scrapping the entire board. So in this case, what they're using is they're using computer vision to actually change the speed and the path of the different boards as they're coming off the line, so that they make sure that there's none of them are hitting each other and then causing scrap. And quite honestly, this is something that a human is not going to want to sit there and look at. So automating it using computer vision is just a brilliant way, because it really frees humans up to go and work on things that is actually enjoyable and things they want to work on, and giving the machine, you know, that consistent, never fails perspective. Another example of kind of using data for good is this one. So this is actually sound visualized. So think of that here for a second. It's vibration data or sound, and all we've done is visualize it, because quite honestly, humans, like if I were to think back to the manufacturing plant with the wallboard, we all see things differently. We all hear things differently. I know my husband is super hard of hearing, or he claims he is. I think it's because he doesn't want to empty the dishwasher. But what you can see here is by visualizing sound, you can see that there is a very significant difference for the bearing 4, the one that actually had a failed roller element, versus bearing 1. And you can kind of see the difference over time. What I did was different differences over time. The benefit with using machine learning and data is that we can have a consistent, universal approach of making decisions, where we're not subjected to people's bias, or we're not, you know, having those issues where somebody gets distracted and things like this. So the more we can actually leverage machine learning for the types of applications I just showed, the better off we are. Now, natural language processing, in my opinion, is the most untapped opportunity. So if you're really looking to get into this realm, I think this one's a really interesting one that a lot of customers and organizations would benefit from. It's that idea of essentially putting context, extracting out information from text and written form, right? Or what people are speaking about, or what they're typing into chatbots. Another one is the Holy Grail. I'm going to call it the Holy Grail because optimization is the one that everybody wants. So it's like, what is the perfect solution? Well, the thing is in order to get to optimization, you need to solve a whole bunch of things along the path. You needed to explore your data, really understand it. You needed to really understand what are the possible outcomes, where are all the different variables, because to get to the best requires that you've done some work in advance. I have to admit, so this is kind of just to explain optimization a bit better. You're essentially trying to find the best solution given you have input variables, right? So purchase price, sell price, things like that, temperature, all of that. And there's objective functions that you're trying to maximize or minimize, meaning you want to minimize your cost and maximize your sales, or minimize your customer frustration and maximize their, you know, enjoyment or performance with it. And then there's going to be constraints the whole time, right? Because that's life. So there's only so many people we can possibly hire. There's only so many people we can or how much money we can possibly pay them. So it's taking all that together and really kind of finding the best solution. I'll be honest, here at SAS, we've been actually working quite hard around the globe on a number of different opportunities to help people during COVID. One of which that I thought I'd throw out is actually how we're helping here in North Carolina to try and make sure that we're getting the vaccine for COVID-19 distributed out as effectively as possible, given all the different constraints that are there. So let me pause, because this is where I want to kind of change gears. So I talked a lot about kind of data science. Now what I would love to do is kind of give you some of my, I don't know, lessons learned, life experiences, so that you can consider that. I'm going to start with reset. If you heard the beginning of my presentation, you'll see that I actually did 2 resets on life. It's okay to hit reset. I have a data scientist that came to me just last week, and I was looking to maybe make a change and go back and pursue a Master's of Analytics degree. And it's okay to hit reset. I would tell you that just be informed. Think about, I'll call it the opportunity cost. What is the cost associated with, you know, in this case, foregoing the wage to go back and pursue a master's degree, when quite frankly, the organization that the individual works for will actually pay for that if they did it part-time. However, the person got into a really awesome program. So it's okay to hit reset. Just make sure that you're not doing it out of frustration. COVID's really, really challenging. Try and think through kind of the end goal, and then think about the opportunity costs and the things that are going to affect you along the way. Okay, I'm curious. Let's pause here. Can anybody guess where I'm going with this one? Little girl in a bed, 3 bears. Anyone? Pause there, see if anybody's got it in the chat window. The right fit, you're totally right. Okay, Goldilocks and the 3 bears. Remember, she tries the 3 different chairs, three different beds. I'm going to be honest with you, there's no perfect job. A job is a job to pay you for your work, right? So what I would suggest instead is, in the case of Goldilocks, find some pillows, shove them in, make them kind of fit what you need. You're going to have to figure out how to adjust and make roles fit. And I'm not saying stick with something you absolutely hate, but bring in your own spice, bring in what makes you happy and incorporate that in. I will be honest with you, in the role that I do now as a product manager, it's not a perfect fit for me. I'm trying to make it work. I have I have a background in sales, I have a background in enablement, and I'm creating product that has all these new features and nobody knows about it. And it's really frustrating. So what I decided to do was kind of bring in the Diana Spice, and I'm writing a blog series every month in regards to kind of what's new and how people can use it. And that's how I'm trying to make the job fit for me. So that would be my one suggestion for you, is find something that you love about the job and enhance it and bring your own spice and your own creativity to it to make it fit and make it work. Because quite honestly, there's no perfect fitting job. Okay, this one is the most irritating as a manager to new employees. I'll say it that way. The next generation sometimes. Does anybody have a guess of where I'm going on this one? My kids do it all the time. They come down, okay, I'm here, what do you want? Well, especially as a female in non-traditional roles, please don't just show up. Don't just show up and be like, okay, I'm here, ready to go, what do you want me to do? Rather, do some work in advance. Figure out ways that you can support and enable yourself. Seek out other people that might have been working there a little longer and go and talk to them and really make an effort, because the more that you make an effort and the more that your manager sees that you're making effort, you will fly up the chain very, very quickly in terms of taking on more responsibility, hopefully more pay, having more opportunity to do things. If you're the person that just shows up and says, okay, what do you need me to do? No one wants to deal with that. And I'm going to be honest with you, as a female in what's considered kind of a non-traditional female role, it's really frustrating for the men and it's really frustrating for the managers. So the more that you can make a little bit of conscious effort to seek out kind of how you can support yourself, how you can enable yourself, how you can learn and grow more, the better off you'll be. Okay, what's the next one? Oh, be a constant learner. Okay, this is just a classic one, but this is actually a really critical one that I really want you to kind of take home with you. So if you go and pursue a data science program, let's say a master's of analytics or something like that, you all learn the exact same information. Most people applying into the different roles have the exact same pedigree. You're not going to differentiate yourself on the how. Rather, you need to know the how in advance or find ways to learn about it. I'll give you some slides on that here in a second. So that's kind of like the baseline, right? Here's the critical differentiator, and here's where women truly outperform, in my opinion, than men. Focus on the value. Like, so what about these BOGO offers? What does that then give to the organization if they can identify customers that are more likely to buy something or make an investment in something or any of those types of features? The moment that you can focus more on the value for what that's going to bring to an organization, if they use data science, the more the customer is going to lean to you and want to work with you, or your organization is going to look to you to try and help them. Because the more you figure out the value, you can then do the next thing, which is you've solved the business problem. Let's say if you go back to the slide that I was talking about for the work that I did with even like the turbofan, right? And applying the support vector data description directly to that turbofan data, I can then take that same approach and apply it in a totally different market on totally different data, and it probably is going to work. So what you can do is, now that you've figured out the value and you really understand how the technology works and the value that it brings, you can then research how you can scale yourself out and really grow your career, go down the path that you really want to focus on. So to get you started, there are so many ways of having free data science classes, things like that. Please look at SAS. We have some really great free training, really top-notch free training. You can go in, sign up for that. There's also a number of other programs out, Udemy, Code Academy, Coursera. There's a link on KD Nuggets. KD Nuggets is easily my favorite thing to go look at as a data scientist, just to kind of see what's going on. So go look at that. Oh, the video didn't work. I love this video. Network. Okay, when you're doing all of this, don't forget some of the great things that the women before us kind of taught us, right? Quite honestly, networking in this traditional approach is the way that I actually got into SAS. In all honesty, I was talking to a friend while playing golf one day, frustrated with my the work that I was doing for the building automation controls and energy efficiency. And she said, go talk to my husband. He's all into data science. Seems like your background. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. He was the one that told me about the analytics program. And that's why I ended up going and pursuing the analytics degree over at NC State, which then got me into SAS. And that's why I'm talking to you today. So the traditional approach, there's nothing wrong with it. And don't forget all the great lessons that you learned from your grandmothers, your mothers, and everybody before us. But you're going to have to build your brand. And now, especially in this high-tech, IoT type realm of life, think about LinkedIn, think about other opportunities, think about doing presentations like this, or attending meetups, leading meetups. Build your brand, find the thing that you're really passionate about, where you bring value to organizations, where you can go and research and identify new markets to go after. So it's kind of still networking, building your brand, right? Because they all built their brand, they were the best at doing whatever, but then take it to that next level, okay? Now, what else? Okay, I want to pause here because I think this is absolutely instrumental. 5 lessons learned, or, oh, I got 6 in here, but there's so many that you learned in kindergarten that if you really take to heart, you will be the best person on a team as a data scientist. So let's see what you think that I'm trying to communicate with these pictures. The little dog with the cat on top, he's supporting, right? He's providing assistance and providing support to somebody a little bit weaker. That's so important. The lady that's talking to the crowd, she's sharing, she's communicating, she's imparting knowledge. You got to do that too. You got to be an awesome team player. Knowledge, cleaning competition. Okay, so the cleaning, I'm going to be honest with you, nobody likes the slob. And if your desk always looks messy, the perspective other people have is that you can't think coherently. I get that you might be highly proficient at what you do, but remember, perception is reality to your manager. So try to have maybe just one messy drawer, but try and clean up after yourself and kind of keep things clean. Competition, absolutely, that's just a given in life, but you want to play fair, right? So try and be a good team player, putting up the hands. You don't want to take over meetings. Don't listen to what you heard in the market about Japan. But anyways, women don't just always talk in meetings. That's not true. And then I think one of my favorite ones is try and be balanced. It's really important to have the knowledge and have the background, but be balanced, enjoy life. Because again, the whole reason why I got to SAS is because I was playing golf, right? Like, be balanced, try and find a way to keep yourself centered and happy, because that is the best way that you're going to be a great data scientist. Plus, it opens your eyes to seeing how data science can help solve a number of problems outside of what you see within those 4 walls that you're sitting at your cubicle. For me, this is an absolute must. Be curious, constantly ask questions, and most importantly, when you're about to sign up to go and work for an organization, for me, be curious. Find out if whether or not how they treat their employees, how they empower their employees, what they work on. Is that something that kind of matches your value stream? Because if it is, it's going to be a much easier match, and you're not going to have to do as much, finagling within that job to make it perfect. But if you're working for a company that is just not your cup of tea at the get-go, it's never going to be your cup of tea. So try and be curious, find out a lot of information about the different companies that you're looking to get in with, and find somebody that really kind of matches on your values. Now, hopefully, if you've been going through any of what I said, hey, I multitask and go and take a look, what you'll see is all of these articles are all in regards to some really cool data for good projects that we've done here at SAS. So the rainforest up in the top right-hand corner. Oh, the paw prints, that's a cool one. That's a computer vision one. So tracking how the animals are actually kind of going around in nature. That one's a really cool one. So instead of going in and like physically tagging the animals, they actually take paw prints. I don't know how they do this. This seems crazy to me, but they're able to actually figure out which animals are navigating or kind of nomadish moving around, and they can track them so that they can determine whether or not the herd is at risk, right? There's just so many cool stories that SAS has been working on. So this is kind of coming up to the end. Resources. If you're interested, link in with me, ask me questions. I'd love to help. If we didn't live in COVID times, I'd be like, come to the SAS campus. I would love to walk you around and show you all the cool things. For me, I find the best way to get excited and engaged in something is going and attending meetups. And they're still doing a lot of those meetups, like for instance, today's, where you can go in and participate and listen. Spend the time, spend the effort, learn about it, because you never know, right? Like that could be your next perfect path. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to add in a couple different links to some great meetup opportunities for you. I can't even begin to explain the amazing women that work in data science. Like I'm nothing. There is such inspiring stories that are out there. So many great things. So what I tried to do is add in a number of different links you could go and take a look at, but know that you can do it too. Like all of us can come together and make this planet so much better, and you can bring your knowledge and your passion and really drive data science to the next level. So I really hope, I beg and plead and implore with you, if there is anything that I can do along your journey, along your path to get you connected with other people, please do. One of the links at the beginning is actually some recording of some different women in data science, just to try and inspire you. But please know that the sky's the limit of what you can work with. And we really do want to have more women in these quote unquote non-traditional roles. But I'm going to tell you, I think it's going to be the new tradition that women are exactly what you see here, really kind of front and center when it comes to data science. So with that, I'll kind of open it up for any of the questions that you might have. Our mantra here at SAS is to be curious. So please be curious with me, ask whatever questions that you think might be helpful. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Diana, for such a insightful information about SAS and your experience throughout the time. So do we have any questions right now which could be answered?
I put my LinkedIn here. So again, if you're not comfortable asking here, we can go on. Most important.
Okay, so Catherine is asking that what is one of the most important things to know about working with a data science team?
Teamwork is dream work. So what I would say is that from a data science team, working together and having each other think through problems. So a perfect example of most important thing, facial recognition app that was created in Asia, right? You think, oh, that's going to work really well. No, it didn't at all, because all of the pictures they used for the facial recognition were men, and they were all of Asian descent. So then when they got to start taking that application to women or faces that were not from an Asian background, they all failed miserably. So having diversity in the team, working with the team, soliciting input from the team is the best way to be a team member. So that would be what I would say.
Okay, and the next question is, what is your favorite project you have worked on and what did you learn?
I'm honest, I love traveling. So the one in Zurich was my favorite, but it's also, I love the IoT data and the simplicity of it. So that was working with planes to try and identify planes that were at risk and how to identify well in advance of how to get the right parts to the right hangar so that the plane didn't have to be delayed. That was easy, but it was also likely because of the fact that I got to go to Zurich.
Okay, and the next question is, how would one go about negotiating for a part-time position?
Oh, in general in life, that's a really good question. I would tell you now is the time to ask. So the individual that I was talking to or talking about that has an opportunity to go back to and pursue a master's degree, I really think you have to be honest with your boss and go and have that conversation with them. I feel that with us all now working from home, we're working such long hours, and they have gained confidence and belief in us that we can work at home if we have something that we know we have to get done in a timely fashion. I would say you have to be very balanced, but you have to be very honest. So please don't be that person that goes and tries to do things behind the scenes, because you're going to get caught later. Because the moment he gets that master's degree, I was like, how are you going to go and ask for a raise now? Because they've just been paying you. So I would say now is the perfect time. You have to set expectations. You have to make sure that what you commit to is something that you can do. So the more that you're curious and you learn about what would the commitment look like for the part-time kind of work that you're looking to navigate, whether it's school or family or different jobs, be very truthful. Again, be prepared. So when I said that whole thing about kind of get some information, get some knowledge to go in, do that and go and present yourself as a business case of why that would be advantageous to them. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's very, very challenging to hire people. And the more that we can retain people, the better we are. And so use that as a way to help you with that business case of, look, I know it's going to take you potentially a month to replace me, but here, if we can scale back my hours, here's the value that you would gain in return. If I'm going and doing, let's say, an analytics degree or training on the side, here's what you're going to gain from that. If I'm going to go work and support my family, here's the benefit that you're going to get, right? So put it in terms of a business case. Reach out to me. I'd be happy to kind of hear your story and see if I can help you with that. But now's the time to ask.
We'll take one more question. So it's like that. I would really like to work part-time for the sake of my young children. Is that an option in data science?
Yes, absolutely. You just have to be honest in it when you start up. I would tell you that there's a number of organizations that recognize that there's only so much time that they can work within a week. So absolutely. And flexible schedules, SaaS is incredible. So if you go and take a look at the careers page, you do have to put in your time a bit to be able to get the allowance. But if you start with the premise of, look, this is what I can bring, it's amazing the response you'll get. And the perceptions have changed that women can work part-time and do multi-roles.
And we have one more question. So how do you identify the most critical teams to include in a data science project, especially in larger corporations?
Brilliant question. Include. So if you're going to be doing something that is going to be automating somebody's job, include HR. Bring in a leader who's going to have your back, who's going to drive this. Do not try and do something from grassroots and not have everybody involved, because what's going to happen is you need to have the business user. So if you're the data scientist that's creating an application that's going to be used by the business, let's say the sales team, bring them in early so that you can get their feedback, have them be part of the testing process. Again, if you're going to be automating people's jobs, bring in HR for making sure that you're not in violation of anything there. Have an executive leadership type person help be your sponsor for this, to help drive the importance, drive the fact that it's going to be used later. But the more you can bring in the different teams early, the better off you are, because if you build, honestly, if you build in a void, it's going to work in a void. It's not going to work outside. Therefore, the more you can try and naturalize it to the entire group when you're building it, the more likely it's going to be used and forever maintained. That would be my suggestion.
Okay, so we are done with Q&A. I would actually like to thank you, Diana, for actually giving your precious time for our conference and just making it more valuable and more insightful for everyone out there. So I would like to thank you for being a part of this conference.
Thank you so much. Let me know how I can help. Please link in with me if there's anything I can do to assist.